All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to this special edition of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, co-creator also of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And we have a special show on tap for you guys, as we do have a special guest joining us in lieu of course, Farpoint Con, which wrapped up last week. But if you are not familiar with Farpoint, I will bring you up to speed. So give me one moment. Of course, if you've never heard of or haven't had an opportunity to attend that show, Farpoint Con is organized by the Farpoint Foundation. It is an annual gathering for fans of all generations and of genres of imaginative fiction, whether we're talking about science fiction, fantasy, horror, or superheroes, in all media formats in which they might appear, be it movies, television, podcasts, or web video. You name it, they make it a point to celebrate it. Their mission is to celebrate fans coming together to learn from and to support each other in their genre interests. And with that, we're going to also get into talking with today's guest, which you see here. Today's guest is a jack of all trades whose viral memes page has allowed him to segue into a variety of paths in the entertainment career space. However, the one which we will be highlighting today will be the Blue Marvel story, Christmas Blues, which he co-wrote with Charlemagne the God and Marvel's Voices. It is my pleasure to welcome to the show Mr. Chris Miles. Let me bring him on. Chris, what is going on, man?
Yo, what's going on, everyone? Thanks, Brandon, for having me on your platform. It was a pleasure meeting you at Farpoint last
You as
weekend.
well, man. You as well. You as well. And just to hit get the ball rolling, so to speak. Can you tell me how Farpoint was? I don't know if it was your first time at Farpoint Con. If so, I just love to know how the show was for you in that first go around. If it was indeed your first time there.
Yeah, it was actually my first time at that convention. I got the opportunity from Eric, who from Artware Alliance, and he was the one that introduced me and you.
Yes.
And so I just want to give him a quick, I want to give him a quick shout out for just seeing something in me that allowed him to set it up where I could have my own panel, and as well as introducing me to you. I mean, I know it's very brief, but I'm glad me and you got connected there.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, I teased it in the beginning there of, as I said, being a jack of all trades, and I can relate of having to branch off into various different disciplines. So, I talked about what you had going with the memes page that you have there, which is Critics of Culture. So can you shed some light into that of how that came together? Because I feel like that's, before we get into the marvel of it all, I feel like that has been like a foundational piece for you.
Yeah, it's actually funny you say that. When we talk about the timeline of me trying to break into the industry, um, a lot of it starts with the meme page, but it also starts with Charlemagne, because in 2018 was when I met him. Was trying to pitch an idea to him, and we was building rapport. And then a year later, I created Critics of Culture, and I did that just on a whim. I saw some content online that I thought was funny, and I was like, "Yo, no one's making any content around this. Let me go ahead and make some memes." And I decided to make that meme page, and I would send Charlemagne my content, and he would repost it, and it started to drive traffic to my page. So I went from having 300 followers to like 5,000 followers in 1 week. So I met Charlemagne in 2018, created the meme page in 2019. And because he kept reposting my content, the page would get traffic and engagement. And other platforms started picking up my content like Hip Hop DX, Rap Radar, The Shade Room, Vlad TV, and then other notable people would end up following me, like Kenya Barris, Ludacris's manager, Shaka, Carl Jones, which is a whole nother story in itself.
Yes, we
But
spent a whole other show on that, of course. Yeah.
right, right. I'm bringing all this up because the same year I made the meme page is the same year Charlemagne hit me up to do the Marvel project. He hit me up in November of 2019. I made the meme page in July of 2019. So, well, Critics of Culture. I'll go ahead and just say the name. The name of my meme page is Critics of Culture, and basically the content just revolves around pop culture, hip hop, anime, nerd stuff, a little bit of everything. But originally, I was making all the content. I would just make these memes that will create discussions and debates, and a lot of them will go viral. So from who has the best movies between Bow Wow and Nick Cannon, uh, who's made the best beats for Jay-Z, or who has the best collaborations with Jay-Z, and stuff like that, who has the most viral Breakfast Club interviews. And it will gain traction, and a lot of people will notice it. But later in 2019, Charlemagne emailed me and said, "Hey, I'm doing this story for Marvel. I want to either do a Christmas story about Ironheart or Blue Marvel." And he wanted some ideas, but I gave him a whole concept. I basically gave him a concept of a Blue Marvel story, and he liked it and ran with it. And that's how I was able to get my first writing credit, because the dialogue is a mix between me and Charlemagne's, but the concept was something that I came up with.
That's what's up. That's what's up, man. And man, we're on the same wavelength because you jumped ahead on all the stuff that I was actually
Oh,
gonna,
oh, oh,
ask.
oh, my
No,
bad. I'm
no,
sorry.
no, no, no. It's perfect. It's perfect. You saved. You were able to be succinct, so I love that. I was
Yeah,
gonna ask.
everything, my story's all connected, so it's
No,
hard for me to mention one thing without mentioning the other.
absolutely. So no, that's the reason why I brought that up, is because that was actually one of the things I was going to ask is, was it originally a Blue Marvel story? Because with Marvel Voices, there's an opportunity to to get a character, a person of color, a superhero person of color, from a multitude of places, and that is a very specific choice to choose Blue Marvel. So I was just curious as to if that was initially always the intention, or it wasn't. But I'm glad you were able to
Yeah.
share that. So can you do a deeper dive on that story in and of itself,
Mhm.
of Christmas Blues?
Yeah, so basically when Blue Marvel characters like Blue Marvel and Ironheart and Miles Morales are created, what I've noticed is it's not even just Marvel, even DC. A lot of black comic book characters are underrepresented. They're
Yeah,
overlooked.
yeah,
So uh, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do Blue Marvel first, because Blue Marvel had, if I'm not mistaken, Blue Marvel came out before Ironheart as far as the creation of the character.
yeah.
And I look at him as one of the few original um comic book characters that don't have a legacy attached to it. Because what Marvel and DC tends to do is they will create these legacy characters that usually have a white character attached to their brand or their origin story. Like Green Lantern, John Stewart is attached to the previous Green Lanterns. Just, and I'm only saying that because those characters were white at first. Or
Hmm.
like the Flash, Miles Morales, Ironheart. There's these white characters that were created first, and they create this mantle, and a lot of times that mantle gets passed down, which is cool. Nothing's wrong with that. My favorite superhero is Batman, and there's a bunch of characters who've donned that mantle and that mask, and so I've nothing against that. But I just felt like Blue Marvel is so uh underrepresented and overlooked, not just in comic books, but even in animation. They've never created any type of animated content with Blue Marvel used. So I wanted to shed light on him. The reason why I chose the story the way I did it was because I even feel like in his own universe, he's overlooked. Because if you remember in his origin story, he will wear a mask. So a lot of people didn't even know he was black, until I guess it was like he had that big fight, and I believe it was John F. Kennedy that said he had to he had to like basically go into exile.
Yeah,
And
with his best friend. Yeah,
right.
who
So I
became his
just
arch villain, which I love. It's an interesting kind of dynamic that they have there in telling that story, and based on what you're saying, actually it being a reversal where you have someone who actually you can arguably say brought about their villain. So
yeah, so I was like, well, let's tell a Christmas story about how he no longer goes out in public often. Let's tell a Christmas story where it kind of showcases why those holidays are so lonely for him. Because if you remember in the stories, he lost his wife, and I believe he lost his son as well. Like he had a Blue Marvel, Adam Brashear deals with a lot of loss in his stories. And I really wanted to highlight that because for some people, Christmas isn't always about cheer and joy. Sometimes it's a reminder of the things you don't have. Sometimes it's a reminder of the loneliness in your life. And I wanted to touch on that. And I also wanted to kind of show how sometimes Tony Stark feels like he's too busy or he's above doing certain things. So he kind of tricked Blue Marvel into
too
attending an event.
self-involved. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right, right. Yeah. So I kind of that was basically the point of that is to bring Blue Marvel out into the public, into the open, and and then luckily enough, he ended up being Charlemagne, and hopefully we'll see a story where Charlemagne does an interview on Blue Marvel asking him where he's been all these years. So it was kind of one of those things where he ends up getting out the house to hopefully it gets to a point where he can tell his story because a lot of people, even in, I keep saying people, like whether it's the Marvel universe or the real world, a lot of people do not know the Adam Brashear, aka Blue Marvel story.
I know, and it's a shame too because it's an awesome story, and I feel like it's slept on too much. The character is slept on a lot in terms of
Yeah.
his power scaling among other
Yep.
characters. Where like you know, hopefully, and I've talked to Kevin Grievous about
Bravo.
this. Griveau,
Yeah.
excuse me. I
Yeah.
always
No,
sorry,
no,
bro.
I think no, no,
I
no,
always
no.
butcher
It's
your last name,
actually
bro.
no, no. You're right. I believe it actually is pronounced Grievous, but I guess maybe once he started doing movies and TV and film, I guess it was
Yeah,
pronounced different. But
got you.
yeah, no, it is Kevin Grievous, and I just want to shout him out too because he said that he liked the story that me and Charlemagne did together. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but
Yeah,
he tweeted saying he liked our story, and that was one of the first things I wanted to do after the book came out was hit him up and see if he read it. And I hit him up on Twitter, and he liked it. So shout out to Kevin Grievous. Shout out to him for creating the character, but also for creating his own comic book imprint called Darkstorm Comics.
yes, indeed, indeed. I've had him on the show, and awesome dude. So, uh, and speaking, further about Blue Marvel, the character in and of himself, as have just been talking about, even though I feel like he hasn't gotten enough of his just due. For those that know the character, they know that he has an already established lore. So in talking about that and having a story that that you guys wrote, you and Charlemagne wrote together, can you talk about that of kind of the what's the word that I want to use, the not the pressure, but just the baggage of also already having a character that does have some lore already established there? Did it make it somewhat easier because perhaps you're still bringing it to the forefront for some folks who may not be familiar with the character, or was it harder because he is still a recognizable character within the Marvel universe?
Well, I'm not gonna say it was easy or hard, but it wasn't something that I went into lightly. Like when I was already familiar with the character, but when someone asked me to do something involving storytelling, I'm gonna do as much research as possible. I'm gonna
Absolutely.
look at all the deep dives. So I basically just scoured the internet of all things Blue Marvel related. Um, and that's what kind of helped me create the story. The pressure was just more so this being my first opportunity. Because I was building a relationship with Charlemagne off of something totally separate. But when me and him would talk, it would always be about Marvel and DC and the movie. So we would chop it up from time to time about similar interests. So when he hit me up with this opportunity, for me, the pressure was just making sure my execution was flawless. I didn't tell anybody about it for the most part. I told like a few people, but I just know how this industry is. I know one day you can get told something is going to happen, and then the next day it doesn't. So I didn't really make too many big announcements. I told probably like a handful of people. Um, I didn't really know that it was serious until Charlemagne sent me the I think he sent me an email telling me to like fill in the thought bubbles, or like, because that's at that point it was drawn. I could see the actual panels from that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the reason why I was like, okay, this I'm good to go on this. This is actually coming out. That was like the confirmation I needed, because sometimes when you work with people, and everyone is distant from one another, you might not have that hands-on experience. Like Charlemagne um didn't come get me or come see me in person to do this. He sent me an email. So I live in Virginia, he lives in New Jersey, and he works in New York. So me and him, we weren't together when we did it, but we were in communication. So but my biggest thing is making sure that I execute this vision properly, and I also don't mess up his name and his brand, because he's kind of giving me an alley oop. So I gotta do everything in my power and in my position to make sure that the editor in chief, and shout out to him too, his name's Chris Robinson, actually likes our story. And he did, because the Marvel's Voice is an anthology series, so it's just supposed to be
Right.
one page. My
Right.
story, I guess, was too. Now, I'm not gonna say it was too long, but it was long enough for 2 pages. So he actually decided. I'm assuming the editor in chief was like, "Look, this story is too big for just 1 page. Let me go ahead and make it two." So I'm hoping that that's what that was, because when you think of one shots, you just think of 1 page only. So in my
Sure.
mind, I'm hoping he's basically saying, "Yo, this story is good enough for 2 pages. I'm gonna let it slide." But that was the only thing that was also different about this, is that Charlemagne had the relationship with Marvel. I really didn't get a chance to speak to any of the people that worked there. I didn't speak to the artists. I eventually met the editor in chief of that particular story later and after the fact. But what made it kind of difficult was Charlemagne hit me up in late 2019. The book came out in 2020. You remember what happened in 2020, right?
Of course. Who else?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, um, whatever opportunities I had to like really take advantage and capitalize off of the moment were kind of shut down, because if you remember, the con space became virtual for like 2 years. It was like for a
Yeah.
year or two,
Yeah.
they was just doing virtual cons. And
Yep.
what I learned that year was, luckily I learned this right before the world shut down, that the con space is really really good for networking. Because after the book came out, I went to a local comic book shop to see if they had any more copies, and me and the comic book owner was talking. Shout out to Richmond Comics. Me and him was talking. I believe his name is David, and he said that GalaxyCon is in town. It's a real big con. You should go there, and if you want to, meet other people in the comic industry, you should talk to Christopher Priest. So that was where I
Shout
actually
out.
got to,
Yeah.
yeah, I got to meet Christopher Priest for the first time, and he gave me some advice. I actually got my first portfolio review from Top Cow, which is a subsidiary of Image. So shout out to Matt Hawkins from Top Cow for giving me my first portfolio review. So even though I wasn't, necessarily with Charlemagne, and I wasn't able to establish those connections with Marvel, I was still able to capitalize on the situation as much as I could in my own kind of way, and still meet people that could kind of give me a roadmap on what I should do moving forward. But COVID kind of really did slow it down, because what I wanted to do was go to more cons to just get some gems and get some more portfolio reviews. But it's all good, because honestly, this project is what led me to working with Martian Blueberry. So that's why I'm always grateful to Charlemagne, because one of the variant covers was a
Mhm.
picture of a bunch of black characters in a barbershop. Brian Stelfreeze was the one who drew that variant of this particular comic book. And that variant cover is what led me to reach out to Martian Blueberry, which is founded by Boondocks producer Carl Jones
Yeah.
and his partner Love Jones. They were starting an animation studio, and I thought that cover was so dope. I wanted to see it animated. So that's what led me to reach out to them, because had I not had this opportunity, I wouldn't have been thinking about variant covers. I didn't even know what a variant cover was, because honestly, when it comes to comic books, I grew up on the cartoons first.
Yes.
So a
Yeah.
lot of my I guess interest in comic book culture
Yeah.
starts with animation. So I love doing what Dwayne McDuffie did for the DC animated universe. That's like my favorite continuity. I like that more than the MCU. So
Got
I'm a big Static fan, Batman the animated series, Justice League Unlimited.
Unlimited. Yeah. Hmm.
Right. And don't get me wrong, Marvel did their thing too. Like I remember the crossover with X-Men and Spider-Man when I was a kid.
Or
And I
Daredevil,
love X-Men.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Right,
Or
right.
Blade.
And I
People forget about
right.
that
Like
one. Blade one
well,
popped up on there.
If you remember, right, if you notice, Spider-Man the animated series had the most crossover moments,
Yeah.
in at that particular time. And shout out to Chase Conley, who directed X-Men 97. He's another one that supported critics of culture from the inception. And ironically, Carl was the one who gave Chase a chance to work on Black Dynamite. So that's why I was saying, like, my story, it all comes full circle with everyone. But
For sure.
yeah, but working with Charlemagne on this particular project is what led me to working with Carl Jones. And Carl Jones was already following me on Instagram by way of Critics of Culture, because Charlemagne would repost my content so much. Because
Right.
Carl was already, and luckily enough, last year at an Invest Fest, I was able to introduce Carl to Charlemagne. So they was actually able to meet, and hopefully one day we can get Carl on the Breakfast Club.
That's what's up,
That's
man.
that's
That's what's
that's
up.
that's one of my goals for this year, and maybe even next year, because Meg the Stallion and Carl are working on an anime. And
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so and Meg just did a video about it. She made a video the other day saying
So
that
yes.
she's in the booth with
Full flight.
Carl. And last year at DreamCon, she made the announcement. We didn't even know she was going to make the announcement, but she made the announcement last year at DreamCon. She was on the stage with Story Mode Bay. Shout out to her. And yeah, man, I'm just happy to have these opportunities. And I want to give you a shout out, because you're actually the first person to interview me about specifically about Christmas blues, because it was so hard for me to like really promote myself as a writer in 2020, because everyone was just so separated. I was hitting people up via email, Instagram, all that stuff, just looking for advice, guidance. But it was really hard outside of the con space to really network with the right people.
Well, I was going to say this, and speaking to your point, and I'll comment on two things. At first, I'll comment on is what you're saying about the just the dynamic of the way things were during the pandemic. During the pandemic, this Movers and Shakers Unlimited had to make a pivot shift where uh, during that pandemic, obviously, if you're not able to get in front of people, there was a need to still be able to reach people, and so it became there was a shifting. We're doing a lot more live streams, and here we are years later. Following the pandemic, that probably most of what we have. Don't get me wrong, we still do our interviews here and there, but for the most part, there is something to be said about being able to do things in real time versus having it happen after it's been edited. As you well know, I know you edit content as well.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong, I like to edit, I enjoy editing, but it's very time consuming, it's very
tedious.
meticulous. Whether it's making sure that things are synced together, making sure you have B-roll. And I know I'm gonna maybe get into some stuff for those of you that are not really, into the terms of content creation, but just being able to kind of bring all of those different elements together into something that's coherent and makes sense. A lot of people see the finished product and say, "Oh wow, that's cool," but to actually see all the minutia that goes into making that finished product, it can become very tedious and time consuming versus doing it live and letting the chips fall where they may with it, if you will. But other thing that I will, and speaking to that also, is I appreciate you giving a shout out, because when we're talking about the pandemic too, a lot of times, you give folks the benefit of the doubt of whether they can be accessed or reachable in order to contact them. And I feel like during the pandemic, it was actually easier to reach people during that time. Folks who I otherwise wouldn't be able to reach out to, you were able to reach out to. So
Yeah,
in
some people did respond, but not. This is my first. This is the biggest opportunity of my life. So
yeah,
for me, it's like it's not taking off the way I thought it would, kind of thing. So that's the reason why I was kind of happy, but a little upset at the same time. But
I get you.
as time passed, I realized everything worked out for the best. Carl said himself, like, the pandemic was one of the biggest motivators of him starting the animation studio, and he realized that animation is one of those things that didn't stop during the shutdown of the world. People still needed animation, and you really don't need to be next to people. You
Man,
can
let
do
me
it from
tell
the right. You can do it. You can do it from the comfort of your home. So things ended up working out the way they needed to, and I was able to connect Kevin and Charlemagne. They didn't know each other. When I made that post on Twitter asking Kevin, did he like our story? When he tweeted me back, I immediately hit up Charlemagne. I was like, "Yo, Kevin wants to work with us," and I got them connected. And I don't know the situation on it now, but I know at one point they had some type of involvement with AWA Studios, like a partnership. I
okay.
don't I don't necessarily know where it's at right now, but I do know that they planned on doing some big things together. So I know Charlemagne just put out the AWA project with Dennis Cowan from Milestone, the Illuminati project. Definitely go get that if you're a comic book fan. But he's also got some stuff in the works with Kevin, and that's why I'm just grateful for these opportunities where I can bring people together, and hopefully they can do business in the future, whether that's Kevin and Charlemagne, and hopefully Carl Jones and any and everyone that I get a chance to bring to Martian Blueberry.
For sure, for sure. And uh, I'll be remiss not to bring this up also, because I wanted to also get your perspective on this. As you mentioned a little earlier, you were talking about just that idea of keeping things close to the vest. I'm well familiar with that of not wanting to jinx things in terms of like opportunities that may
Yeah.
arise. So in considering that idea, take me back to that time of finally seeing it. You touched on it a bit, but I wanted to dive into it a little bit more. Take me back to that time of finally seeing Chris Miles like on the story of actually fully having it realized and saying, "Wow, okay, this is for real." Like that, like it's here. I can see it, in front of me, and other folks are able to see it. Like, take me back to that and what how surreal that was.
Well, it was dope. There was a lot of emotions I had, because one, Charlemagne didn't even hit me up when it was finally published. Like, I found out just scrolling. I just happened to be scrolling on his Instagram page,
Uh
and
huh.
he made a post about it. So that let me know, oh, it's in stores now. I can go get it. And because it was COVID. Well, I'm not going to blame COVID completely, but I was unemployed at the time.
Okay.
So I wasn't working. Um, I actually ended up quitting because something happened at my job that I won't get into, but let's just say that it was either quit or get fired. So I chose to quit. And I was kind of just figuring things out.
Yeah.
So I was still doing critics of culture. I was still being consistent with that, but
Yeah.
that wasn't one of those pages that was like monetized or I'm making a bunch of money off of it. It wasn't like that. So
Sure.
honestly, getting that opportunity to write for Marvel was very, very, kind of motivating and inspiring at a time where the world is about to shift, as well as, things in my life aren't necessarily the best. So
Right.
those were the emotions. Like you're talking about someone getting an opportunity, a major opportunity while they're not necessarily working. And
Been there too.
things, right, right. And it's like one of those moments where sometimes when things look the darkest or the bleakest, there's
You just
that light
need
at the
that
end of the
one light.
tunnel.
Yeah, that small
Right, right.
morsel
So
to tell you, to motivate you to keep going, for sure.
right, right. So that's really what it was. It was really like a big motivator. And I was just grateful for the opportunity. I screenshot it. I screenshot any articles or content that had the actual image of the comic and kind of created a collage. I sent it to you actually, where it shows me and Charlemagne's name. It
Yes.
showed
Yeah.
the cover of the cover of the comic book. Me and Charlemagne took a picture when I first met him. So it's like I wanted to capitalize off this moment as much as possible. Because mind you, it's just a writing credit. So it wasn't life changing in a way where it's like, oh, I'm financially set and I'm financially straight. And I'm fine with
Right.
that. I'm not money driven. I'm not one of those people that just will do anything for a paycheck or will only do stuff for a paycheck. So I was able to take that writing credit and capitalize off of it as
Big
much
one.
as I could based off of the circumstances,
Absolutely.
which that writing opportunity led me into producing opportunities. So I was able to, luckily, I got the opportunity to work for Carl at Martian Blueberry. Last year was the 20th anniversary of the Boondocks. So in 2024, I hit Carl up and was like, "Yo, are you in the cast doing anything? It's going to be 20 years in 2025." And he said no. So I was the one who put together that Boondocks semi reunion panel at DreamCon last year, and luckily we was able to pull it off. Sadly, I wasn't able to get Regina or Aaron Magruder, but we was able to make an impact with Cedric Yarborough and Yamara Taylor, Rodney Barnes, Gary Anthony Williams, and JD Witherspoon, who was John Witherspoon's son. He was able to come as well, and of course Carl was there, and he was very supportive of it. We was able to get tribute videos from Kitty Kaboom, who's a dope voice actress. She voiced Rocket off of Young Justice. She was the voice of Cedar's World back in the day. I was able to get David Banner to send a video. Um, Avion Crockett, Sway. Did I say I don't know if I said Monique already, but Monique sent in a video. So it was just dope to get as much support as I could, because sadly what I've noticed at cons, a lot of the events that go on there don't go viral, or they don't make it in the mainstream news, because there's a lot of iconic moments that happen at these cons. So I would love to hopefully one day bring everyone from that show and that legacy together and have them all on one stage. But what I was able to do, all of that started from just one person giving me an opportunity. Like from 2020, from 2018 to right now has been a very long journey, but everything has fallen into place as it should, and I guess the way it was supposed to happen. Because we always want things to happen when we want it to happen, but sometimes things
In
just
our time,
happen,
yeah.
yeah, when they need to happen. And Yeah, man, I'm just grateful to be here.
For sure, man. As you mentioned, I want to be able to get into Martian Blueberry, but I want to also respect your time as well. We need to get you back on to talk about like that whole journey also. So before I let you go, can you tell folks where they can find you and what you have coming up next? I know we've talked a bit about what you had going offline, but if you could share it here of what's next on the calendar.
Okay, so you can follow me at Critics of Culture, at critics underscore of underscore culture. Um, Also follow Martian Blueberry at We Are Martian B. Follow Carl Jones at I Am Carl Jones. Um, we have BlurCon coming up next. That's going to be real big. While I was at DreamCon last year and going back to COVID, I was able to introduce Carl and Love to Hilton from the founder of BlurCon. And the only reason why that was able to happen was because during COVID, I had a moment where I was interviewing people for a little bit. Um, Shout out, well, they're no longer a group, but there was this group online called Nerds with Melanin, and they wanted to partner with me in creating content. And one of the people I reached out to interview was Hilton George, and I was able to build a rapport with him. Luckily, he was at DreamCon last year, not last year. Yeah, it was last year. Yeah, he was at DreamCon last year, and I introduced him to Carl and Love, and now Carl and Love and Martian Blueberry is going to be at BlurCon 2026. So that'll be the beginning of March. Also, we got DreamCon coming up in July, and for DreamCon, they're doing a voice actor talent search. So for all those out there that are voice actors or that want to break into that industry, I highly suggest you come to DreamCon this year. We're gonna have some panels. I'm not gonna say those names yet, to be announced. You'll hear about it soon. But there are gonna be some legendary judges that will be seeing if you have what it takes to be a voice actor. And we got some very special things planned for BlurCon as well. So um, if you're in the East Coast, DC area, Virginia, if you want to meet Carl and find out everything that we're doing at Martian Blueberry, I highly suggest that you come to BlurCon this year.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, there you guys have it. Again, I want to thank Chris Miles for hopping on and talking about what all the awesome stuff that that he has going. Whether we're talking about Marvel Voices, whether we're talking about um, all the other cool things that are going with Martian Blueberry. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, a co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Troy ENT and then Brandon Troy underscore ENT on IG. That out of the way. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there and see you guys soon. Peace.